Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is Solid Waste Advisory Commission regular meeting for June. This is June 23rd. It's now 4 p.m. And we'll start by roll call. Please indicate if you're present. Mark Nelson. Present. Steve Corey, here. Scott Walters. Here. Sean Keating. Here. Meg Larson.
Here.
Karen Richmond. Randy Spiewak. Isabel Cow.
Here.
Ex officio members, Rochelle Klein.
Here.
And Councilwoman Liz Strader.
Here.
Quorum being present, we'll go ahead and proceed with the meeting. First is adoption of the agenda. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at this. Are there comments on the proposed agenda?
Mr. Chair, no comments. I would move approval of the June 23rd agenda as written.
It's been moved and seconded that the proposed agenda be approved as written. Are there further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of approving the agenda as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval of the draft minutes for the May 26th meeting. Hopefully, well, are there any comments on the proposed draft?
Mr. Chair, I just have a comment. Our minutes don't indicate who actually attended. We don't kind of check those items. All right, thank you. In that case, I would move that we accept the minutes as written.
It's been moved and seconded that the draft minutes for the May 26th meeting be approved as written. Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of approving the draft minutes for the May 26th meeting as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Thank you. Next on the agenda is community acknowledgements. I do not have any for this meeting. So we'll move on to program reports. The first item under program reports is from Republic Services on service concerns. Rochelle, are you going to open this up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yes, I'll just say that both Bob and Pete are here with us today. So I'm actually going to let Bob, if he'll come up front and talk so they can all record you, let Bob actually, from an operations perspective, answer that question. He can probably answer it more thoroughly than I can. So it's just really into service. Thanks.
Thank you, Rochelle. Commissioner Corey, commissioners. Yeah, we had a really rough week the week following Memorial Day. Couple things that caused that. We started out the week, we had on Tuesday, 8 people actually flex out, take a little bit longer weekend, which really started off that week pretty tough. When that happens, what we end up doing is when we have routes that aren't covered because the drivers don't show up, we've got extra drivers. What we'll do is we'll actually have them cover those routes. And so we ended up spending that entire week kind of covering those routes, getting caught up. Vast majority of the routes didn't have an issue, but for those ones that did, it was a tough week. Actually pretty proud of the team. They did a great job recovering within 5 business days. And really the trash part was done within 4 business days. We had some of our compost, which didn't really affect Meridian so much, that took a little bit longer. One of the things that came out of that, one is the communication side. I don't think we did a great job communicating that it was a tough week. And that's something that we need to do a better job of. The second thing that came out of that was just volume. So, this is my first Memorial Day here and my first season here. And one of the things that we saw was a dramatic increase in our typical week over week volume after Memorial Day. What I've heard from some of the other team members is that's pretty typical. So that's something that we've absolutely got to be prepared for. And I don't know if it's people working in at their houses, throwing more stuff away, doing spring cleanup. But we saw about 24 more disposal trips week over week, which is actually pretty significant because at about an hour to an hour and a half per disposal trip, you're basically having to put at least another route on the street to keep up with that type of volume, because our trucks do have max loads and our drivers also have a maximum number of hours that they're allowed to work. So definitely going to be something on my radar screen preparing for next year. The other thing that came up on here was phone time waits. So here's another opportunity that I see for us, because I got a lot of those calls when people were having a hard time getting through to the call center. And that's flexing for the season. So I did a little bit of math at the beginning of this week as I was kind of gathering information for where our challenges were. And it's very normal between January and June. We have somewhere between a 20 and 30% increase in the number of calls that come in. And I pulled out COVID year because it was kind of a weird year. And that's pretty accurate math for 2019, 18, and 17. So one of the things that I'm going to look at going into next year with our customer service team is they should actually be bringing on some temporary people to help answer phones to prepare for that type of call volume. Because the way that we track that is give or take our average rep handles about 70 calls a day. They were actually managing 100 calls a day on average through the Memorial Week, which is physically impossible for them to do that right. So you saw wait times go up. You saw, some reps make mistakes. So again, it was a hard week, something that we don't make excuses for. We know that we had some challenges. The good news is that we're getting prepared so that doesn't happen again. Another thing that I would like to add to this, because this has come up with growth, is we're going to be having, and we talked about this during one of our planning meetings, we're going to have to put more routes on the street based on the amount of growth that we've seen. And the math right now, and this is for the Boise division, which includes Meridian, is 6 more routes. And that's just based on purely on growth. So Meridian, it looks like about 1, and Pete, keep me honest on this. But we're just kind of getting through that math. And I think one of the questions that comes up is how come we didn't do it earlier? Our volume was actually somewhat flat all the way up until around February, because in COVID, we had a lot of commercial businesses that were still partway closed, and we were able to flex drivers over into residential. And so now, beginning about February, March, we started seeing our volume shoot through the roof. And so it's taken us a couple months to get through the math. And now it's about getting in more trucks and actually CNG capacity to fill those trucks so we can put some more routes on the street, which will also give us some more capacity when we have challenges. So any questions?
Mr. Chairman, can I just add something to what Bob was just saying? Bob had mentioned earlier that we have, I think, 11 drivers in training. Is that right?
Yeah. So one of the things that we haven't talked about this a lot because we've been keeping on top of it, but we've all heard about labor shortages, but even across the country, driver shortages. It's a huge deal for not just our industry, but the entire, CDL driving industry right now. And, right now we've got 11 people in training, and some of this is for some of the growth. We've only got 9 open slots, but those slots are actually 2-person rear load. So we're able to flex in temporary labor to throw trash. So we're looking pretty good there. We just did a wage increase to keep up with the wages that have blown up in this area as high as anywhere in the country. Between us and Utah, we've been number 1 or number 2 for the last 3 months. And, we're running right at about our average turnover. So we haven't seen more turnover, but we're definitely living in different times than we were a year and 2 years ago from that standpoint. But so far we've stayed on top of it, and we have a lot of confidence. Since some of the benefits have expired, we've actually seen even a lot more candidate flow in just the last 2 weeks. It's been pretty amazing.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Councilman Strader.
Well, I'll check with the chair. I don't want to run through him. So thank you for the update. I want to just be open. I have received some pretty frustrated feedback from some constituents in Meridian regarding the phone wait times and everything. I know it's not a surprise to you. You're having challenges, It's not about blaming. It's just about getting better going forward. Absolutely. Sounds like you have a lot in place to do that. I think the phone wait time is probably a pretty big deal to people because they can't get through. And I just want to suggest either, there are some systems where you can call people back so they don't have to hold. Maybe providing an email or an alternative way to get through. But we need something than people just kind of hearing that, busy signal or whatever it is. There needs to be some way to get back to people or some sort of alternative. I would hope. Because I've talked to a couple people who said they were on the phone for like 15 minutes or more on a wait time, and so if you can think of some ways to like help with that, maybe technology wise, like I said, like a callback system or something, I would highly recommend we do something like that.
Yep. Thank you, Commissioner Strader. So we just added on our phone prompt, and Rochelle, you can take over if you want, but the email address so that people can email us. And we actually have somebody that handles all those emails as they come in. With the phone callback, that's actually on a few of our other systems. So that's one that I'm going to be taking a look at with Linda. And I don't know if she had, so it's already done. We got it done already.
That's great to hear. So now if somebody calls, they can click on like press number 1 and we'll give you a call back, and your wait time is what is that what it is?
And Rochelle, do you want to add to that? Because you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Councilwoman Strader, that's what I was going to jump in and say. I'm glad you asked your question, but we were have already made that change. So what it does is it just says, thank you for your call. And if you would like to just shoot us an email, go to republicservices.com and type in your address and hit contact. And so it's pretty easy. As a matter of fact, Joanna used it and said she had a response within 4 minutes, an electronic response. So that way you just shoot off your question or your concern, and then it's a different pool of people, not the customer service reps on the phone. They're data entry people that are answering those emails. So you tend to get a really quick response back from those folks. And that change is already in place. It's not a phone prompt, so you don't get to just press 1 and leave a message or anything like that. That's coming. The call, within a few months, you'll be able to leave your number for us to call you back. That's not there yet. So in the meantime, we do have just an option to shoot us an email, and we'll get right back to you.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. And I think that that communication point's a great point, right? Let people know what's going on. When people don't have the info, they just get even madder. And of course, we all get an earful about it. Thanks for the update, though, and just owning the issue and trying to do better.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I had a couple of questions, Bob. First is, are you encountering staffing issues within the call center itself?
No, we're actually fully staffed right now. Yep.
And then you talked about kind of the action steps that you're taking, those, so the improving communications. Can you talk a little bit more about that communications to who and how?
Yep. So we actually have the capability, and let's just make, and this doesn't happen very often. Let's say we had an entire route that we couldn't get off the ground. We have the capability to send call them alls, to actually send out text messages through our system, and also just communicate with you. And that's something that we've got to get dialed in better. It does not happen very often in this entire market, but when it does, we've got to be able to communicate to folks, because most folks understand, hey, I'll just leave my card out one night and we'll have it the next day. And that's something, to be quite frank, we didn't do very well in this case.
Mr. Chairman? Yes. You had mentioned that in the section on misses and delays and having a large volume, we prepared for what happened last night. I counted over 4 major trees just down my street, and umpteen limbs that big around, 20 feet long. I don't know about your other neighborhoods, but we got hit pretty hard last night with the wind. It's going to end up somewhere.
Yes, it is. So thank you. This is part of my challenge right now, is that we've got to get our route size smaller than what it is today. As we've grown over time, there's a certain average that we like to see. so that we have extra capacity in the system, because this will not be the last storm we have. We will have another snowmageddon. So part of, one of my jobs, and I'm an ops person by trade, is watching that. And when we reach a certain point, it's time to cut another route. And we should be up in front of you saying, hey, it's time to put another route in the street in Meridian, so that we're prepared for that, because it won't be the last time. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. You talked about the process of adding routes a little bit and needing more trucks. Can you talk a little bit about like lead time? How long does that process take? Where are you at it?
Yep. So thank you, Commissioner Larson. We started this process actually back in April, and just because of the number of homes, we actually have a team that comes in from our area office that puts it all in a computer program and optimizes it and tells us this is what you guys should be doing based on where your current route size is. And so that's actually the easy part. We are almost done. That should be approved by the end of this week, just the structure of it. And again, it's not going to be all Meridian because we're doing it across the whole valley. The next step is getting the trucks ordered, which that takes a few months. And actually our biggest challenge right now is we're bursting the seams over here. And so I've actually got to put some more CNG fueling capability in. I've got to put about 20 more lines in to kind of prepare us for the future. And that process is underway right now. So my hope is to actually have these routes on the street in the next couple of months, provided I can get the trucks, because I can make it short term with the CNG.
So are you saying there may be some more times where we're getting this significant customer comments for a month or so until you get everything in place?
Well, we're caught up right now. So right now we're caught up. Like I said, we've only got 9 open spots for about 130 total positions in Boise. So we're able to flex in temps, and most of those people are throwing trash. So we're actually in pretty good shape right now. But what my concern is, I'm looking at our growth rate going, holy smokes. And so what we don't want to do is get behind this 8 ball again. And being transparent, if COVID wouldn't have happened, we saw our volume flatten out with COVID for about a year. And we were able to flex drivers between our commercial lines and our residential lines. We probably would have those routes on the street already with the growth rate the way that it was happening. And part of my job is let's not get behind the 8 ball again, because our routes are too big right now.
And if I understand right, when you say Boise, it's Boise Meridian.
Yeah, so our Boise yard down the road, this is where we run your trucks out of.
Okay.
So we're looking across the whole valley. Actually, the number for the whole valley is 11 more routes is what our math looks like from here all the way to Homedale. So I have plenty of work to do.
Do we solve some of the problem when you bring on the electric trucks if there are no old vehicles going out instead of those?
Yes.
Just kind of in, okay.
So that's in the works. So 5 of those electric trucks are rear load, and we don't have any problem with the runtime on the rear load trucks. Those will make it a full day. And so we are absolutely going to be flexing some of those trucks into our reroute. And that will help us out.
Commissioners, additional questions of Bob? Well, we're understanding of the fact that it was a tough week, first week in June. Really appreciate you making changes, and I suppose we're probably going to see some of the effects of that in the next couple of weeks when we start seeing the rate structure for next year.
Yep, you absolutely will. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the recycling fund. And we'll start off with a review of the current balance. Joanna?
Mr. Chair, we have a current balance of $46,076.80. And that that has the soft plastic bottle recycling payment removed from it.
Which moves us on to B, consideration of that amount. And to understand what that is discussing is that in the past, we've been able to generate a balance of about $100,000. And at that point, then we've opened up a window where members of the public could go ahead and submit essentially grant requests. We would go ahead and finance many different things. Equipment in park playgrounds, the signs, the artwork at the city's edge for Meridian. And sometimes it's items that are cooperative with other committees and commissions of the city, such as the tiny library over at Hill Elementary School, Hillsdale. Anyway, so those are possibilities, but there's also possibilities that we may see a need to do something to get people to understand why it's worth recycling, or to make our collected recyclables cleaner. And we've done that by providing tote bags for groceries, reusable tote bags, and various other activities. What we've traditionally done would be to start at the beginning of a fiscal year. October 1st would be when we would announce a window would open. Usually the window is open in November for applications, and we would have to consider those applications in, say, December. Hopefully people would be able to start at the beginning of the calendar year. Obviously, other projects within the city or within the commission can go a little bit quicker. Regardless, if we decide we're going to start projects with the money that we have at this point, I'd need to go ahead and run that by council for their confirmation that it was okay for us to do it. If the commission was wanting to go ahead and do some kind of a project, that would require council agreement. And hopefully that kind of gives you some idea of the thoughts we need to have as we discuss the community recycling fund. And with that, I'm going to open it up for any comments commissioners may have. Commissioners? Go ahead, John.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Just, thinking about different ways of, I like that you said that showing Meridian different ways of recycling, having a contest of, either from business point of view of having tons or some kind of way to show that the contest is that as a team, you really have to get together and produce a lot of recycling, and that we would provide a prize. Businesses probably could, be a part of it, maybe it'd go on for a month. We recycled this much, or even like citizens could, households saying, this is what we did for our recycling. I mean, just ideas for the use of funds. Does that make sense?
Speaker for me, yes, but then again, I think you've mentioned that you maybe would write this up as something for consideration in the future anyway, so.
Yes, I can do that.
Members of the commission, anyone else have any questions or comments at this point? Commissioner?
Some of the thing in the barrel.
We can't hear you online, just FYI.
You hear me now?
Yep.
I'm suggesting that we open it up and use some of the funding, but not all of the funding.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I would concur with that. Yeah. Any opportunity though, that kind of remind folks gives an excuse to talk about recycling, and yeah, the idea of any sort of recognition programs for high participants or leaders, either residential or commercial, would might be good use of the funds, unless we already do that. Yeah, if we have these funds, we might as well put them in play. Then keep a reserve. We've had a couple of cases where we've needed to reach in to a specific kind of a shorter. I'm on board using the fund.
Rochelle, I'm going to bring you into the conversation. In the past, one thing I forgot to mention is we've leaned very heavily on Conrad, that he has been willing to go ahead and receive the applications and collate them, make sure they're complete, and go ahead and present to us the potential projects and such. And if I may step back, of course, you were the one that mentioned this last month. So I'm not sure you want to go ahead and add some framing to this conversation, but also if you could comment on whether Republic might be able to go ahead and help us with that staffing ability.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And yes, Conrad can definitely help again. So like you're mentioning, historically, Conrad has accepted all applications and then met with the applicants to make sure he gets them fleshed out, and then he'll come to us with them and present them. And so you can hear a summary and then ask specific questions to the presenters or, the applicants, and see if you need more detail. And so he would definitely be willing to do that again.
Members of the commission, do you have further questions or comments about what's been presented so far?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, I think that's the Commissioner Keating's idea is a great one, because in the past we've done things like aluminum bleachers or the mini library, things like, but we haven't really engaged the public like at that level, especially the businesses, and saying like, do you have a champion, and just look at percentages maybe of waste. So obviously a big company, it'd be a lot easier to generate more tons than a small one. But if we look at, we know what their trash service levels are just from our database, and we can say, gosh, if you can, put some creative plan in place to divert waste from the landfill or recycle more, things like that, then, we can think about what that looks like. But then we get to have multiple people engaged and multiple winners. So I think it's a really good idea.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Bill, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I wondered, and I don't know if Councilmember Strader has an opinion. I'm looking at this checklist that Andrew provided me on the last time we did this, and I don't see a checklist item to take the idea to the council before going out to the public. I don't know whether that was done before. Do you recall?
Bill, I don't remember.
No, I was thinking if
was
the
a
chairman recalled, because I thought it might be good to at least give the council a heads up. Hey, because the recycling funds are doing better, we think we'd like to do a project. Here's kind of the parameters we're going to put around it. I don't know if the council want to say, hey, what about this, that, or whatever, consider that before you put it out. It looked like on the checklist, the point in time where the council is brought into the conversation is, let's see, it's pretty far into the process of doing a call out for these things. So I didn't know if it might make more sense, especially because we have newer council members on there. We haven't done a project for a while, that it might be good to have the council members at least have a heads up, like get on the work session agenda for a brief conversation about what we're doing, why we're doing it. This is not new, but this is the process we're using, sideboards, whatever. So
Bill, probably you're right. I would think before expending some city funds, it would be appropriate for some heads up, maybe of, hey, this is what we do. And there are a few of us that are new, so that might not be a bad idea.
Well, and like I said, I think it's just a few sideboards of what it is, because the council would, want to know, obviously, we're using a portion of it, how that's going to be, the funds are already there. So it's not like we're having to generate revenue, or you're asking for revenue. You're just simply wanting to expend some of the funds, and what the max amount's going to be, and what type of projects you're looking for. Just a little, honestly, 10-15 minute conversation at a work session, probably within the next month.
It would be great if we could put that at the beginning of a work session. That way no one has to sit through it, but sure.
Does that sound okay, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, it does. I believe we were in a different situation, say 6 years ago, where recycling revenues were such that we could routinely have about $100,000 in the account. And so we kind of had a standing authority that we could do this. And as a result of that, then we came in more when the projects were in place. But now that it's been a little bit rare to get revenues, I'm in agreement that this probably should go as a informational item before council, based on what the commission recommends. And my schedule's easily available to do that.
So what I'll do, Mr. Chairman, is I will go ahead and reach out to the mayor and council president and see about maybe one of our July workshops. We can do that. And then again, just like Councilwoman Strader just said, informational. We're bringing this out again. Wanted to kind of let you know where we're going, kind of what the process is, because I think the intention was to award into the next fiscal year. Isn't that right?
I think timing wise, that's correct.
Yeah. So there's a few months, but I think just getting them on the front end, I would hate to come back to the council in September saying, hey, we did all of this, we're ready to go. And they're like, hey, what is this about? And why did you talk to us about it? I mean, more information is always better than late information. So.
Thank you. Members of the commission, further comments on the discussion we've had?
Mr. Chair, yeah, I absolutely agree that we should kind of start communicating that to council, and maybe we could even discuss today of the 47,000 roughly, what our low water mark should be, maybe 20,000 or so. We kind of keep in the bank, or if that's too much, but that we kind of say that we want a $25,000 or so out there available, or do we not even care about that until we get the presentation?
Mr. Chair, we could use the mini library as an example because we know how much that costs, or we donated our portion. It's a wonderful item that is part of the community and our name is on that. And I think it'd be a good example to demonstrate what this grant can be.
There you have it.
Mr. Chair, as far as the dollar amount, I think I would like to see the proposal for the contest fleshed out a little further. Imagine using for that purpose, and then from there derive the amount that might be available for grants. I would support both a grant cycle and contest.
Commissioner Larson's kind of cutting in and out, so I don't know if she's not close enough to the microphone.
As close as I can get.
Oh, there you go. That's way better.
I would make a pitch, Commissioner Keating, for an element of reduction. Not only how many tons can you recycle, but how many tons have you diverted from the landfill, and adding both of those components, because of course the reduction in overall waste is the most important element, I believe.
And Mr. Chairman, I don't recall in the last one, I don't think I was real involved with it, but is it the desire of the commission to be putting out a call that the commission is looking for funding up to a certain amount for a certain type of project, or being part of a larger project and helping fund a part of that? Or are both considerations.
Traditionally, I believe, well, we have financed portions of a project.
Right.
That we have matched funds that somebody else is putting up to go ahead and accomplish a project. If it's a community project, if it's a SWAC project, then obviously we would finance it completely. And of course, that's kind of the concept. If we're encouraging people to bring in more clean, recyclable materials, we obviously want to go ahead and have a greater percentage of the account set aside for public grants. And we could go ahead and have those as up to a certain amount, or we could go ahead and say that grants up to a certain portion of the community recycling fund will be released depending on the applications received, or I'm sure I would need some help on how to word that. And I'm sure staff can assist us on wording that correctly based on what the commissioners may want. So commissioners, additional comments or questions at this point? Yes.
Isn't there a recycling component in our grant? The project has to have some type of recycling or is based on reducing somehow. I can't remember the verbiage in the grant. That's true.
You are correct. Probably the best documentation is in the package for that we've used in the past for people to apply for the grant. And it does a good job of discussing how this is a matching fund, and it does discuss the need for recycled materials to be used and such. We can certainly go ahead and make that available before the next meeting so that people can see what we've done in the past.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question about this? So the way I'm hearing it, it sounds like there will be two buckets of money, one for matching grant funding, whether that's for just a portion of, like, the mini library was a shipping container that was converted into a library. So we paid a portion of that, or whether it's something SWAC decides on and we pay the entire amount. So there's like the grant funded portion. And then if I'm understanding it correctly, Commissioner Keating's bucket of money would be like award money, like you reduce your waste. Is that right? Like you reduce your waste, you do a great job, and we measure that, and the top waste reducers or recyclers would get some sort of reward. Is that right? Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, it was for either businesses and I'm not even sure how you do the citizens, but yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner.
I hit the wrong button again. An idea would be the aluminum seating or stadium seats, whatever, with the business's name, brought to you by our efforts, blah, 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 and then underwritten by the SWAC. I think the awards should be something that they're working towards, but it's not a cash value to them as much as it's helping the community at the baseball field or a soccer field or a park, something like that.
That idea is excellent, actually. Thank you, Scott. And then I was thinking, even if they did have money to donate in the community, they, have the opportunity to have this much in order to, we can donate to the whatever fund they would choose to.
Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman.
I really liked the suggestion, I think it was Commissioner Larson, but the suggestion about having an element of waste reduction as part of how we're thinking about this. That really resonated with me. And, you know, we have like a community participatory budgeting program in the city. I almost wonder if you couldn't, you know, kind of like you were saying earlier, sort of open this up to the community for suggestions, or even maybe there's a way for us to create mini grants for people to divert waste from going to the landfill or come up with innovation. I don't know. I love it. It's great to chew on and brainstorm some more. But I think any kind of opening it up for, you know, the citizens of Meridian to make suggestions is always a good idea.
Rochelle, do you know offhand if some of your commercial clients in Meridian could be talked to about something along these lines in such a way as, I mean, in the end, kind of working with them to develop some kind of a contest with the rewards basically for improving commercial recycling? But I guess the question is, would we need to work through you to go ahead and talk with the commercial recyclers, or is there some kind of an association they may have?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have hundreds of businesses in Meridian, and the tricky part with communicating with them directly is a lot of them are national accounts. So you'll have like Bed Bath and Beyond or Target, and like their billing statements and things don't even go to people here locally. And so to move the dial, it's probably going to be easier to do that from a local with the smaller local businesses than the big chains that we see around the country. We definitely do reach out to them. And that's a service that we offer all the time, is waste reduction and recycling services. So Conrad and I both work with businesses to reduce waste. We see companies like ESI step forward and they do a phenomenal job, and they have a green team, and like T-Sheets has a green, and they're into it now. But we have different companies that are really, I hate to say Intuit when I just mentioned Intuit as a company, but we're happy to, you know, reach out with like text messages, or but we wind up getting sometimes to the wrong person. So we'd have to think that through. So sometimes the person in accounting isn't the person that's going to be the boots on the ground to help start a waste reduction program. So we'd have to think through how we reach the right people at each business. We definitely have contact information for every business.
Members of the commission, I guess one piece of direction I believe I do have from you is to pursue setting up a presentation to council in the next couple of weeks, whenever they've got some time on it, to go ahead and open up the fact that we're considering this. Is there any additional direction that you want to work on this, or is it more that we'll continue this on to the next meeting and have the package previously used so you can kind of see a little bit more structure to this thing, and also have Commissioner Keating's thought on a project? Additional comments?
I hate to open this can of worms. Do we need any sort of working session to help Commissioner Keating kind of work through some of that stuff between now and the meeting with the city council? Or
Well,
what kind of timeframe we're talking about?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Larson.
my understanding was the presentation to council was in slightly more informal at this stage, that there is this pot of money and SWAC is considering some options for how to utilize this money, which includes grants, SWAC projects that we do ourselves, et cetera, just kind of as a heads up. Do we need to have it completely fleshed out for the work session in July?
And I'm not thinking we need to. I think I just need to go ahead and tell them that, yeah, we've had a hiatus for 3 years or so. And we're looking at a budget, or we're looking at the fund having reached over $45,000. And we think it's about time to go ahead and release some funds and then just go ahead and get some sense of the council on things that they want us to consider as we go ahead and start releasing funds. But embedded in that was also a question, and Commissioner Keating, would you like some assistance in producing something for the July SWAC meeting?
The comments today, just the thought process, absolutely. Everybody has great input, so I'd love more input.
So Commissioner Nelson, should I take that as a volunteering to go ahead and assist Commissioner Keating?
I should have saw that coming. Yes. Yeah, he can reach out to me and we can find a time.
Are there any other commissioners that would like to go ahead and assist Commissioner Keating?
I would.
Okay, so that portion of it in preparing for the our July meeting is set. For the sake of formality, you are hereby dubbed to be a subcommittee to go ahead and put together a presentation for next July's regular meeting.
Mr. Chair, and that's related to a recognition program, right? Not the grant.
On my behalf, I'm not putting any limits on you, what you're doing. You can go ahead and do either one. If you think it's, if you want to put something together that develops some competition, fine. If you want to go ahead and look back on what people have done, recognizing the challenges this last year with COVID, that would be appropriate too. But anyway, as to the other portion of it, as far as the prep for the council presentation, like I say, I believe it is good for us to go ahead and identify that we believe that the recycling fund has reached a level where we should release some funds. And then to go ahead and get some feedback from the council on what they're kind of seeing. I don't feel like I need any additional advice on that, but if I'm missing something, certainly now is a good time to go ahead and mention that. Any further questions on the community recycling fund at this time? Okay, then we'll continue this on to the July meeting. The next item on the program reports is a heads up on the rate discussion, this being the rate discussion for FY22. Jonna, you want to give us some kind of a heads up on what we can be looking at?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On July 7th, city staff will be meeting with Republic Services and discussing the presentation for fiscal year 22 rates. These rates will be brought to SWAC for consideration on July 28th. With an understanding and hope to have the rates presented to council end of August or beginning of September.
If I might frame that conversation, the end point is that the new rates would go into effect with fiscal year for October 1st. So the schedule that's just been mentioned works well with us. There is that flex that if presented at the July regular meeting, questions arise that are significant and we need to continue consideration to the August meeting. As long as we approve it by the August regular meeting, there's time for a public hearing in the early part of September to go ahead and work on those rates, and council has time to go ahead and consider them. But obviously, the sooner we complete our work, the sooner, the easier it is to get through all the steps necessary with council. Members of the commission, do you have questions on the upcoming fee review? Very good. That will be a significant portion of our meeting next month. Next on the schedule is old business, and I know there's been some activity with the Recycle a Bicycle. And so I'm going to turn it over to Rochelle to catch us up on what's been going on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I have to just start by saying we have the best bicycle repair committee because 3 of our commissioners here come on a regular basis to repair bikes. So Walters, Nelson, and Keating all come on Tuesdays. We've missed some here or there, but we had a late request for 72 bicycles at Meridian Elementary School, and that's for kids, parents, foster parents, or guardians. And so we've, I think, done 30 of those. So we still have about 42 bicycles left. We also filled a big order for Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Meridian. And so that was last week. We dropped 19 bicycles off for Big Brothers, Big Sisters. So we're staying very busy. I'm under a lot of pressure to clear out that bicycle area because our Amazon road is coming right where we store those bicycles. So I think we'll be clipping along, repairing even more bicycles really quickly as we have to move those bikes. But it's a great group of people. The community totally appreciates it. I've sent some pictures out to some of you guys. It's pretty for our homeless customers that a lot of times it's their first tangible item that they've kind of earned back. And for people who have jobs, they'll come get one and a bike, and they could just put the bike on the front of a bus and get just about anywhere. So there are people probably you'll never meet, but it's a pretty great program. And they look like junky bicycles when they're up against the fence, but when people ride off with a helmet and a bike lock, they look pretty good. So I appreciate the city support. I appreciate my boss's support in letting this program go. But we really, it's been a part of what we've done now, I think, for like 3 or 4 years. And I know we've sent over 1,000 bicycles out into Meridian alone and during that time. So that's our monthly update. So people are working hard behind the scenes and having fun. I mean, Commissioner Walters can ride a tricycle with the best of them, or a little tiny mini bike. So when we road test them, we all get down on these little tiny bikes and drive them around our parking lot. It's pretty funny. So that's the update for this month. We still have work to do. We still have like 50 more bikes to get out in the community.
Commissioners, do you have any comments to go ahead and add to that report?
Just thank you, Rochelle, for sponsoring all that and doing all the coordination. We're just the labor, the muscle.
The skills. So I just run bikes around to the recycling bin when they're done with them. But yeah, thank you guys.
Mr. Chair, I would just express thanks and gratitude to Rochelle and to the commissioners working on the bikes. That is such a fantastic program to both divert items from the landfill and also help folks those in need. It just hits on so many levels. I'm greatly appreciative of that. Is there a need / a way to bring additional bike repair volunteers as the program continues to grow? Have we?
Oh,
considered
yes.
that? I know Idaho is a great state for volunteers, and if we could find folks, I imagine that additional, I have no skills in that area, but I imagine there are people that that would be willing to help with that.
So Commissioner Larson and Mr. Chairman, yes, we always are looking for additional volunteers. I think the work is endless. So if you can patch a flat or run bikes to the recycling bin or strip brakes. I mean, I'm good at stripping bikes. That's all I know how to do. But we put all the parts in buckets, and then people who know how to rebuild them. But it's actually, yes, I mean, we can use as many hands as we can get. So I think Commissioner Keating brought his father-in-law, and Commissioners Walters and Nelson brought a friend of theirs. So it's an open door, open repair policy. And we do have a Vietnam veteran who comes and helps us too. And he actually, his name is Dan Frazier, and he's been in Meridian a long time, and he has helped us a lot. And now he is buying a bicycle. Some of our our customers are from the VA, and they can't ride a regular bicycle. And he just offered to spend up to several $1,000s on a specially adapted bike for one of our veterans that can't ride a regular bicycle or tricycle. So it kind of goes beyond even what we do collectively repairing bikes. So he's actually helping other veterans too. So.
Mr. Chair, Michelle, is there a specific time that the repair activities get done to share with people who might be interested in volunteering?
Yes, thank you. Until Commissioner Keating's daughter started playing T-ball on Tuesdays. It's been Tuesdays like for Mr. Keating just has to do T-ball for this short season and on Tuesdays, but it's generally Tuesday afternoons, like anytime between 4 and like 6:30 or 7.
And Mr. Chair, Michelle, one last question. Interested individuals should contact you.
Sure. Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks.
Additional comments from any of the commissioners? Well, thank you, Rochelle. Obviously, we really appreciate that program.
You're welcome.
The next item under old business is an update on the city's effort to go ahead and fill the solid waste coordinator position. Joanna, give us an update.
I am very excited to announce we have filled the solid waste coordinator position. The individual will be starting August 23rd. She is moving from Minnesota, but we look forward to having her join the team.
Thank you. That completes all of the business scheduled for us at this time. The next meeting is July 28th, and as mentioned, there'll be a significant portion of it that's associated with our fee review. Commissioners, if there's some other things that we should be considering, well, I should say, obviously, we'll hopefully be able to go ahead and look further at any CRFP activities, Community Recycling Fund Program activities. As always, if there's additional subjects that we need to address, make sure that you get in touch with myself or Joanna. Earlier that day, the next quarterly meeting for the county's Solid Waste Advisory Committee will meet. So if there's anything coming up, I'll mention it. But unless there's some other thoughts about subjects that we need to pick up, that's kind of what July looks like.
A question for Rochelle. Have you seen a date for, when's the next HHW meeting?
Oh, we just had one.
Did I miss it? I think I did.
I think you might have. Yep. So they're quarterly also. So we had one in early June, so early September.
All right, we'll worry about that in September. We'll try to attend next time.
So commissioners, unless there's any other comments for the good of the committee, then I will go ahead and call this meeting concluded, adjourned. It is 4:58, and thank you for helping us on this great subject.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.